Troubled media company Vice has been accused of blocking news stories that could offend the Saudi Arabian government. Now, these allegations follow the agreement of a lucrative new partnership between Vice and media publisher NBC, which is 60% owned by the Gulf state. An exclusive Guardian report details examples of Vice spiking or pulling content that covers controversial aspects of the Saudi regime. Freelance writer John Lubbock spoke to The Guardian about a Vice report he worked on about young Saudis campaigning for transgender rights. Lubbock says the piece was, quote, actively welcomed by Vice editors, but publication was then repeatedly postponed and cancelled last minute. Multiple Vice sources told The Guardian the article was pulled after an intervention by senior Vice staff, who thought it could endanger employees working in Saudi Arabia. Lubbock thinks this is only part of the story, though. He says this: I was told by editors there that the story was delayed because they had a team of people in Saudi Arabia, but this may not have been true or only part of the story. Bankruptcy has already affected the publication's reputation, but if they're now seen as shying away from difficult stories due to their ownership, it's really the final nail in the coffin of their countercultural image. I think the constant list of things that you can buy on vicenews.com is probably the final nail in the coffin of their countercultural image, but we won't quibble. In another example of self-censorship, a Vice World News film examining Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was deleted from the internet. Now, Vice sources who spoke to The Guardian said the removal was, quote, partly attributed to safety concerns regarding staff in Saudi Arabia. Note, only partly. Vice previously paused its work in Saudi Arabia after the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, but in the wake of repeated financial problems, including bankruptcy, the company has expanded its relationship with the country. And in Vice's London office, a photograph of the Sarah Everard Memorial protest has reportedly been removed and replaced by a giant map of Saudi Arabia by employees who are working on this joint venture. Vice is also receiving, quote, millions of dollars via its advertising subsidiary, Virtue, to promote Saudi Arabia internationally. The Vice partnership is part of Saudi Arabia's push into taking a leading role in global sports and culture. In the past few years, the country has managed to strong-arm its way into partially controlling elite golf. If you are not aware of its beef with the PGA, look it up. Very entertaining, but also demoralising. It's also bought the Premier League team Newcastle United and has stirred up debate by bringing some of the world's top footballers and managers to its professional league. Sean, what does Vice's alliance with Saudi Arabia and its content censorship tell us about the fortunes of media?
Nothing that we don't already know, and I'm sure that Novara Media are acutely aware of the landscape in which they're trying to operate and distinguish themselves. But I think the sort of increasing decline of media into advertorial, into kind of PR, rather than perhaps journalism or the independence that we associate with journalism, is something that we've been seeing across the board when it's not just turning into sort of content flip over by AI. The problem here is that, Vice has been in trouble for some time. And I suppose out of desperation, the company or shareholders, they will be looking to continue to try and save the company financially. And in doing so, they've kind of lost the vision perhaps of it being a company that is for independent journalism. And of course, there is something really wrong if journalistic integrity is being interfered with, allegedly, based on commercial interests in any media organization. There's something very warped about a media landscape where the big actors, and Vice, is new media, but it is one of the larger, newer conglomerates, is that if we can't trust legacy media to be free from commercial interests, and we can't trust new media, it's a bit of a grim landscape.
One argument I think lots of people make is that if you choose to be particularly outraged by Saudi interest in the media, then that's xenophobic because Rupert Murdoch is right there. What do you make of this?
I feel like that's nonsense. I mean, that just feels like a whataboutery vibe, doesn't it? I mean, like, no. I mean, the question, like, actually, I think most people that would be somewhat alarmed by this, if it's true, are exactly the sort of people that me would be complaining about Rupert Murdoch all the time. I mean, I hate Rupert Murdoch and the Murdoch media. It's, obviously, I think there can be conspiracy theory about control of the media, etc., and that can go down a sort of a certain dark path. But I think in general, when you're saying that on principle, it doesn't really matter who it is, but when it is, wealthy places with a kind of disregard for the human rights of journalists, alongside anyone else, who are taking over media companies. And we know that the Saudi Arabian government has a very, very, I don't know, reckless view of human rights and protecting the rights of journalists. Not, reckless with their lives, and certainly a disregard for journalistic freedom. So I think it's a completely valid concern. It's not really about the particular actor; it is about the principle, and that's the same. Whether in some ways, I think Rupert Murdoch, it's like it can be actually much more familiar to us because we're aware of the fact that Rupert Murdoch doesn't quite hide necessarily quite a clear agenda, nor do the politicians in our country that chum up to him, really.